Okay, welcome back. So covering the baselines again, and we've had these definitions before, but the scope baseline is made up of three parts: the scope statement, the WBS, and the dictionary that goes with it. The schedule baseline is the agreed upon schedule, including start and stop dates for each activity. And the cost baseline is a time-phased cost budget. Please know those definitions. Okay. Now, continuing with the third process in integration management, direct and manage project work. This is what it's all about, right? This is building it, right? And so you want to carry out the plan that you just built and had the kickoff meeting for. And so your inputs are, you have your inputs, your tools and techniques, and your outputs. Notice the inputs are fairly common. You'll regularly see a project management plan as an input now that it's built. You'll see project documents, EEFs and OPAs. What is different here is approved change requests. Any change that gets approved by Perform Integrated Change Control, bam, comes back to this process, as well as quality control for implementation. The other tools are fairly common, but there's a new one, the PIMIS, the Project Management Information System. So just think of it. This is whatever system I'm using to communicate with everybody. And that makes sense. If I'm directing and managing this work, if I'm executing the work, I've got to share updates and current configurations with everybody. And then my outputs are pretty easy. If I'm building it, my output is it, formerly called the deliverable, right? This is what the project management plan is about, building the deliverable. I am collecting work performance data, which is raw, we've said. I am updating an issues log. I am collecting change requests, etc. Now notice on the right-hand side that if it's a predictive project, it is it that you're building is a deliverable. And by definition, that's a verifiable product, result, or capability. In Agile, a deliverable is known as specific and measurable outputs, which you do in short sprints. Okay, now the other process in executing is called manage project knowledge, right? And we're always using existing knowledge and creating new knowledge. And the point is share it with people, right? So we have our inputs, tools, and techniques, and outputs. And the inputs are fairly common. You can read them for yourself. But one of the inputs is the deliverable, which is an output of my last process, right? This is the knowledge I'm gaining that I want to share. In my tools and techniques, of course, I have expert judgment and information management, some other good stuff. But look, knowledge management is a key tool, right? If I'm doing Agile, that happens through storytelling. If I am doing predictive, it's going to happen through, say, networking. Okay, and the knowledge is either explicit or tacit. Explicit is fact-based. Tacit is hard to describe, though we all kind of know what it is. So if I ask you to describe a family. Now my outputs when I'm sharing knowledge is this lessons learned register. Right, because I'm sharing my lessons learned, passing the knowledge on, and of course updating my OPAs. That's a rare one, OPA updates, but it makes sense here as I change knowledge. Here's a slide that summarizes explicit and tacit knowledge for you. You can read it for yourself, fairly self-explanatory. Notice though at the bottom that in Agile, communication is known as osmotic, right? Osmotic communication. It's just by being in close proximity with the other team members that by osmosis that knowledge gets shared. This is largely a predictive approach otherwise. Now, the fifth process is monitor and control that work, right? And this is where I compare my plan that I built in 4.2 with my actual results, that work performance data, which is an output of 4.3 direct and manage project work. So I'm comparing those two all the time. So I have my inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. In my inputs, I'm going to compare my plan. So you see the project management plan in the documents. That's my plan. Versus work performance information. That's my actual data that I analyzed, right? Information is analyzed was the key word. Okay, and then I'm going, and of course, schedule forecasts are also part, right? Because I'm looking to control it and I want to measure variances. What are my forecasts? Am I going trending poorly or am I trending in a good way, right? Tools and techniques, meetings are an important one. Face-to-face is always emphasized. And of course, my outputs. When I'm controlling it, I'm going to have work performance reports, right? This executive summary that summarizes my data and my information. And based on that, I may have change requests. Now, integration management has three key definitions you need to know: corrective action, preventive action, and defect repair. Corrective action is against actual deviations. Preventive action is to address anticipated deviations, and defect repair is rework, right? Scrap non-conforming products, right? To make any changes based on corrective action, preventive action, or defect repair, bam, you must go to integrated change control, which is the next process. Perform integrated change control. In integrated change control, I will be concerned with configuration management. In project management, configuration management largely means what version of the project management plan am I currently working on? Okay, perform integrated change control. So some quick questions. Who's responsible? You are. You're the project manager. But in Agile, we would say the product owner is, not the Scrum Master. Are change requests formal or informal? Well, in predictive, they're formal. But in Agile, they're more routine. They happen every day through conversations and implementing solutions based on that. Who can request a change? Bam! Any stakeholder can. Remember, a stakeholder is an individual person or group who is impacted by or may be impacted by or perceive itself impacted by a decision in the project. And who makes decisions? Well, in predictive project management, the project manager or the sponsor may. But there's also a change control board, which is more likely that will be used in predictive. Now, in Agile, the product owner is generally going to make the change decisions. I'll show you an exception to that in a moment. Yes, okay. So here is the formal process. You have a change control system, which will use a change control board, and you will keep a change control log based on the results, the inputs, what was said. Now, the inputs include the project plan and documents. That's very common. And work performance reports. You want to pass out to everybody on the change control board this sort of executive summary of what's going on and the actual change request with it. If you want more information, you could flip to the PMBOK guide in those sections there, 4334 or 4614. Now, your tools and techniques, the big one I want to pull out, but you should read all of these, is the change control log. You are responsible for the change control log. And then the outputs include approved change requests. Now, when I say approved changes, I don't mean every change is approved, but if it is, that becomes an output. But you log all of the change actions in the change control log. And of course, if the change is approved, go ahead and update the project plan and the documents. Now, here's a flow chart. Don't memorize this for the exam, but it gives you a sense of the flow. So you have configuration management on the left. That's what version of the PMBOK project plan you're working under, like at the baselines. And then you'll have a change control system set up, and it's going to use this change control board, and of course you're going to keep a change control log. And whatever the results are, you want to make sure you communicate it to everybody. And then you want to implement the change by putting that approved change, if it is, back into as an input to a couple of the processes, like direct and manage project work, as we discussed. Okay, so this is kind of a layman's approach, but it's still very accurate, and I would know the flow here for the exam. You want to always, as a project member, remember you're proactive, prevent the change from happening. But if you can't do that, identify the potential change. Look at the impact. Project managers, if you're offered this on the exam, you analyze first. If it's an option, you always analyze first before you do. Analyzing can happen quickly, but you analyze first. Then you'll create a change request. You'll conduct the integrated change control process with its change control system and change control board. Keep updating your change control log. Whatever the results are, you will update that log. Then you will communicate it to people. Okay? Now, change in Agile is a little different. It happens every day, every morning at a stand-up meeting. Agile's nickname is change-driven. So it's very streamlined, right? And the product owner is normally responsible for changes, the change decision, unless the change involves a change to intended benefits, schedule, or budget. Otherwise, the product owner is the decision maker. Now, the last process is close project or phase, right? So if I'm closing the phase, it's an interim sign-off of the deliverables. How are we doing? Does the customer approve of them? If it's at the end of the project, it's a final sign-off of the deliverables by the customer, and with its inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. Notice in the inputs, the different one is accepted deliverables. This is accepted, this means by the quality control team. So your own quality control team, which is this process 8.3, is first going to review it and recommend that it's ready. Then you take this deliverable to 5.5, which is called validate scope as a process, and the customer gets to sign off on it. Then you're ready for this process, which is close project or phase. Always include with it some data analysis with your results, and of course update your OPAs as an output, as well as finalize reports and the product. Now, this slide here is only meant to give you a summary of some key points, but you can read it for yourself. It's largely nothing new. And I love this slide. I have it on every lesson, and it is a summary of what we have talked about. You notice across the top, I have the 7 processes that you are responsible for managing all the processes. And I repeat that again as a dividing line. So what I have up here are what's going on in each phase, just to give you a flavor, just to integrate it and wrap it all together. And down here I have the major outputs of that. So for example, when I develop the project charter, this is going to tell me how I'm going to build a detailed project plan, which comes next, right? I'm going to incorporate the business documents, like the business case and the benefits management plan. It's going to formally recognize the project, and it's going to provide the project manager the authority to use resources. And remember, the output is the charter, which is very high level. Of course, another output of this process is the assumptions log, but the big one is the charter. And that's how you would use this chart as a summary review. When you know this chart, you're in pretty good shape. Keep studying, keep taking tests, but in pretty good shape. That's all I have. That's integration management. Yes. Study up, and I look forward to talking to you soon.